You know, it's really starting to dawn on me that there's only about 30 days left before I have to have all of my trucks done. And that's really starting to scare me. Welcome back to the Scale Builders Guild. Thanks again for watching. It is episode 3 of Road to the Scale Nationals, and there has been some progress. I mean, class 1 is basically done and ready to go. Class 3 needs new axles, Capra with Vanquish axles, which hopefully will be done before the comp starts, and links from Josh as well to get that thing all buttoned up and done. And maybe we'll add a winch. I've got a couple of winch options. And then class 2, that's sort of the big bugaboo right now. There's a lot still left on this list, which is right here. Lots of things. I will say that making lists is an excellent way to keep track of all the things you haven't done yet. And with the deadline approaching, nothing is more motivating than seeing a lot of unchecked boxes. So we're gonna endeavor to get most of those things, if not all of them, done in the next 30 days. Some of the things that have been accomplished in class 2. Well, the chassis is pretty much set up the way I want it for this comp. I am running a droop setup with Traxxas big bore shocks and some very nice machined aluminum parts from Deluxe. Does a lot of really cool, innovative stuff. These no preload shock spring cups are a really nice addition to this shock. Makes it really easy to adjust that preload. It comes with a set of O-rings so you can actually adjust how much preload you want to have on that shock. I've opted to not use any of them because I like the truck to sit as low as possible. Deluxe also makes a really nice shock cap, and this shock cap allows you to use a standard rod end to use as the mounting point rather than having to drill out the existing Traxxas big bore ones because they aren't really meant to mount the same way that these do. Because you can change the length of the rod end, you can actually set these up to be a much taller, longer shock if you were so inclined. I really like using a droop setup in a comp. I think the lower the truck, the better its center of gravity, obviously, and it just manages to perform a little bit better when there's more weight down low. You do sacrifice a bit of ground clearance because the truck is sitting so low, but I really don't mind that. I'll be sure to put a link down below to Deluxe's website so you can see where all these products came from. Another thing in regards to the chassis, I have been toying with this idea of boat sides or not using a boat side. For now, I do have the stock sliders on there again. I also need to figure out a good way to mount the body. And one of the reasons I have those sliders back on there is that it is a good sort of reference point for me as to where the body is going to sit once everything's done. So if I do decide to boat side it, I know kind of where to put things. Regardless, if I do keep these stock sliders, I will replace the actual slider portion of it with a metal slider so I get more scale points. The same goes for the rear bumper. I am kind of deciding how I want to mount the body. Part of how I'm going to determine that will be how that rear bumper comes into play. I may end up doing some sort of hinge mount on the rear so there's nice, easy access in case of a breakdown or emergency. It's really easy to get everything off. That's about it for chassis updates. Nothing really major has changed. Now that those shocks are set up, I'm feeling pretty good about overall ride height and geometry of all the links. Everything looks really good. So I think we're in a good spot in terms of the chassis. I almost forgot to mention, one final thing that I'll be doing to the chassis is installing the more extreme overdrive set of gears that Vanquish offers for the VFD transmission. Those are in the mail and should show up for the next episode. Cosmetically, the drop bed is in and pretty much done. It is still mostly there. Inner fenders are there. Some of the floorboard is still there. And it actually kind of really, I think, looks pretty stock for what is a truck that doesn't exist. I used some scraps of styrene that I had from my styrene scrap bin and built this thing out so it actually fits quite nicely. So it actually will give me all those drop bed points and looks pretty good now that you can actually see the fuel cell as well. The shock towers obviously pop through, but because this is a comp style truck, I think that's forgivable. If I weren't doing a comp truck, obviously I would probably do like some sort of laydown shock or a cantilever system so you didn't have to cut into the drop bed at all, but it's sort of necessary for performance's sake to keep these shocks upright. I used a lot of my styrene slurry that I created back in the first episode of this build and tried to mold it so it also looks like a bit of a weld along the edges of the inner fenders. There's still a little bit of sanding to do and some detail work, but it's in there and almost done. On the subject of paint, I've got some pretty decent ideas about what I want to do. Definitely going to involve some chipping so it looks like it's a bit weathered. If you've got any great ideas about other paint schemes that maybe I haven't thought about, by all means post a link or post a comment down below. I would love to get your feedback and see if any of you are close on what I'm thinking of doing. To give you a hint, I have decided on my new tire and wheel combo. I will be using Proline Hyrax in the 1.9 4.75 inch tall tire with Crawler Innovations foams and Method Racing wheels. I've decided to go with the bronze and red rings, and I replaced all the hardware with locked up RC scale hardware. I thought this was a great combo. They look awesome. They look awesome, and this has been a setup that's worked for me very well in the past. For this setup, I will tell you that I did decide to vent the tires, and venting is really super easy, and I'm going to show you how to do it right now. Before you've mounted the tire, pull out the stock foam and get out a set of leather punches. Maybe you don't have a leather punch at home, but it is a very useful tool, especially for doing this venting. It makes a nice uniform hole in the tire. I put 2 holes in opposite to each other, so one at say 12 o'clock and the other at 6 o'clock, or 9 and 3, or 10 and 4, or 2 and 7. There's lots of 1 and 7, not 2 and 7. Lots of different options, but all basically the same, just one on the other side from the other. If you do run through some water and you do get water inside the tire with the foam, you just give it a lot of throttle and spin all that water out. That's why you put one on either side, so it's got an equal amount of holes from which to vacate. I should mention also that these Proline Hyrax tires are in the Predator compound, so they are extremely soft, which may or may not come into play in Las Vegas. It really kind of depends on the weather, the time of year, the temperature, etc., etc., etc. I'm running Crawler Innovations comp cut inners and medium outers with a tuning ring. I'm also running the firm outers. The medium outers I think I'll be running up front, and the firm I'll be running in the rear. Yes, they are different. They will react differently, but I think it makes the most sense to have a bit more flexibility in the front, especially to help in grip and turning and getting around obstacles and up over obstacles. That's the theory anyway. I will say that when I first got into scale competitions, I kind of scoffed at the idea of changing foams, but I will say that they make a tremendous amount of difference, and when you've got the right foam compounds and the right foam setup, you'll be surprised at how much they actually help the actual driving characteristics of a truck. If you're interested in getting into the world of tuning foams and comp cuts and foam in general, I'll put a link down below where you can pick these up. And I think that's going to do it for Class 2 for this episode. Yeah, lots happening, still a lot to do, but it's on its way to being ready-ish. Class 1, all I need to do is spool some new line onto the servo winch, and I think that one's ready to go. 30 more days, because I have to ship all of these trucks out to Josh so he can drive them to Las Vegas for me. Yeah, I know it sounds convoluted, but traveling with 3 trucks all at once seems like a bit of a nightmare. We'll get 2 of these shipped out. I'll probably take the Ripper with me because it's a Ripper. The other 2, ship them. Fits, it ships. There you go. That's where we're at. I'm definitely feeling the pressure. I know Josh is under tremendously more pressure than I am because he's been really slacking. Building computers and working on his studio and 3D printing things, working. Well, maybe, I don't know. I've never seen him actually do any work. So, yeah, that's where we stand. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and hit that notification bell so you get updates anytime there's a new video from the Scale Builders Guild. Thank you so much for watching. We will see you again soon for episode 4.